Hey guys, I'm Patrick Hall with Fstoppers.com. Today we're here with Morgan Morris. We're going to be doing a catalog style shoot outside, and I'm going to show you two of my favorite light modifiers to get the most professional looking images. Big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Let's get into the lesson. All right, so I have Morgan placed close to this wall. It's got a really cool rustic look. I think this would be awesome if we were shooting a catalog shoot out here and we would just do a bunch of different looks. But the first shot I want to do is I want to show you guys what the natural light looks like. It's very overcast, so you might think that it looks really nice out here, but we also have this big tree that's kind of blocking a lot of the light. So let me take a test shot here. So as you can see from the shot, the natural light's actually pretty nice. It's got a lot of texture to it. It's very bright and airy, but a lot of the light on her face is not as flattering as it could be. We have a lot of shadows under her chin. Her eye sockets are kind of dark, and I just don't think that this is a very professional looking photograph. So in situations like this, it's really easy to think, oh, I'm just gonna shoot natural light and it's gonna turn out great. But I think we really need to add a strobe to help light Morgan's face a little bit better so that this looks as professional as possible. So to add a little bit of light to this scene, I'm just gonna take a Profoto B1, bare bulb, no modifiers at all, and let's see how adding this little bit of light from a single light source changes the scene. So I'm basically gonna set this light about 45 degrees so I get some nice shadows and highlights being cast. And I'm gonna tilt the light down. We're gonna put this at, let's try it at about 7th power. And I want to raise this up so that it illuminates her entirely. We are doing a full body portrait here, so I want the light to hit not only her face, but also all of her clothes. So I think it needs to be somewhere in this position, maybe just a few feet above her. And now that we have the light position, let's take another shot just with this hard light. Now, I think this photograph definitely looks better. There's more light on Morgan's face. I feel like her outfit's lit up a little bit better. It's a more properly exposed photograph. But if we zoom in on her face, you can see there are some hard shadows. They are a little faint because the light's far away, but you can definitely see that defining outline around her nose, under her chin. And if you look at her eyes, there is a small catch light, but it's so small that I don't think it's really lighting up her eyes the way I would like it to. Now, in many cases, you might also be concerned about the shadow on the background, but because we have Morgan about 2 or 3 feet off the wall, all of the shadows are being cast off to the side, and you're not gonna see as big of a shadow difference in these examples. So the most obvious way to soften this hard light would be to add a light modifier that's gonna give it a softer look. And what I have here is the Profoto 3-foot Octabank. And by making the light source larger, it's also going to make the light softer, which I think is going to improve the photograph drastically. Now the goal here is to create really soft light. So I want this softbox close to Morgan. I'm really gonna position this in a place where her face is gonna look the most flattering, and then we'll see how the light falls off on all the clothing. So we're gonna just raise this up again, just kind of above her head. I'm gonna add a sandbag or two before I forget, before the YouTube commenters tell me how much I put your life in danger. Now, because we've added a softbox to this, I am going to raise the power of the strobe just a little bit, but let's take a test shot and see how different this photograph looks. So if we now look at this photograph, you can see how much better the light looks on Morgan's face. We don't have those hard shadows. We do have some directionality because the light's off to the right, but I think this looks way more pleasing. Now, this might look great for a portrait, but I think if you were shooting catalog work for a clothing company, I don't think it's really lighting her clothes evenly enough, and I think that's really the ultimate goal we want here. Now, we have a few options here. We could move the light further away, and that would illuminate the scene more evenly. But because we're moving this 3-foot octabox further away, it's going to appear smaller in relation to our model, and that's going to cast much harsher shadows than I actually want. So the other option that we have is we could just make our softbox even larger so that we can keep it close to our model but illuminate her entire body. So the most obvious choice in lighting gear would be this 7-foot octabox, which is way taller than even me. And we're gonna mount this up here and we're gonna get really, really soft light that I think you're going to see looks way more professional and looks much more like a catalog shoot. Now, when you're using a softbox this size, it does weigh a lot and it's prone to being caught by the wind. So you definitely wanna make sure you have a lot of sandbags and you have a really sturdy light stand. So now that we have the 7-foot octabox on here, I'm gonna have to move this a little bit because it is so close to our model, but I still want it in the same general position. So the position that I've put the softbox, I've basically put the Profoto head about her head height, and now we have a huge 7-foot span of like, essentially what's gonna look like window light. So let's take a shot and see how this looks compared to the other images. So when you compare the 7-foot octabox to the 3-foot octabox, you can really see This looks completely different. We have a nice highlight on the right side of her body, and it kind of falls off into shadow. It gives a lot of dimensionality to the clothes, and because the light source is really large, we have really nice flattering light on her face. If we zoom in, you can see the catch lights in her eyes are much larger. They look much more natural. This almost looks like we shot this in a studio with a big window light just to the right-hand side of the frame. Now for me personally, I think this is my favorite lighting setup of everything we've done so far. So now that I have the light in the perfect position, I'm just gonna work with Morgan to do a couple different poses, take a bunch of shots, so that I guarantee we get the perfect image for the client to select later. So we just did a bunch of different shots. We worked through a lot of poses. I think we got some really cool images. These are very unique. I think these look very different than what a lot of photographers would do, even what I would do, just put a small softbox up. It's very rare that you'll see nice soft light like this outside, because you obviously have to set up a huge softbox to do that. So if you have the time and you have the resources, I would suggest for a shoot like this, using the biggest light that you can get it as close to your model, and you're gonna produce really clean images that are gonna look really professional. At the end of the day, I don't think any of these shots are bad. It definitely comes down to you to pick the look that you like, but there's something about using a really large softbox outside that looks super unique. So for me, I like bringing a large softbox outside as much as possible. And a big thanks to Squarespace who made this video possible. If you don't know what Squarespace is, they make professional looking websites for photographers. I just found out, Morgan, you have a Squarespace site?
Sure do, just 2 months ago.
Was it easy to build?
Super user friendly.
There you go, and she's not even a photographer. So if you need a great website, head over to squarespace.com/fstoppers where you can save 10% on your first purchase. And if you want to learn from some of the best photographers in the world, head over to fstoppers.com/store where we have full length tutorials on all genres of photography.